Oh, yeah. We are back. We're going to keep this rolling this week 4. Still working on our full name, but I've kind of aptly named it the Armchair Quarterback because that is what fantasy football is all about, where we take control from our couches.
It's true.
And kind of do that. But hope everybody had a good week this week. I know that my fantasy team absolutely crapped the bed once again in a week that I projected that I was going to have a get-right week, and nobody decided to show up. So that's always fun. Mike, how did you end up doing this week?
Well, at least you're consistent. So, you can take that for what it's worth. Good. I beat my wife in fantasy football.
Whoa.
It was, well, I guess it wasn't consensual either. So, yeah, that's some dangerous. Should we start this podcast over? This is the first minute here. No, it was the battle at the Alamo, and Jackie put up. I mean, she crushed the median, had a great week. I beat a Dolphin. How do you beat a Dolphin last week? I beat Raheem Mostert. And it was a great week for Keenan. R.I.P. Keenan, no longer on the team. But finally, I'm 3-0 against the median. Got my first win in a head-to-head. And I'm now second in points scored against. Krill has taken over that mantle for the bad luck award or no defense. So,
wow, yeah, that's I mean, I'm 0-6 over here. Vice being my co-manager in our league, he just texted me like Tuesday morning. He's like, "Do I have permission to blow this up?" And I said, "Absolutely. We are a dumpster fire. We need to make stuff happen." We sent out about 1 million offers, and we got absolutely nowhere this week so far.
I was very close to trading with you guys.
I still think that, we could still make a couple moves. But it's been a really rough fantasy season. Like I said, last week on the podcast, I kind of mentioned how I really wanted to go in on quarterbacks, and so far, really hasn't paid off for me. My other guys, my wide receivers have been a little lackluster. But I do think that, brighter future is ahead. I'm excited for this week. Got a close matchup. We'll kind of go over those a little bit in the podcast later.
The thing about going in and going after like Superflex 14-team league, you think, okay, just go get 2 stud quarterbacks and you're going to be set. It's not a bad strategy. Both me and Krill used that last year to get to the finals. Briggs, year 1, used no quarterbacks and won it all. But the big thing is if you're going to spend big on quarterbacks, you have to hit on your budget value guys. And if you don't, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So you got to play the waiver wire right. You need to get lucky, because if you just have 2 big quarterbacks and everything else is garbage, like we're not talking about our dynasty teams here, but that's my dynasty team. You're not going to win. Like you have to hit on the value guys if you're going to go that strategy. So it's
100%. And I do feel like, we got, Brian Robinson. So that was always like I feel like a really big hit so far this year. Didn't have a fantastic week last week, but still 10 rushes for 70 yards in a negative game script. I mean, you're averaging 7 yards a carry. That's looking pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But, Sam Howell turning the ball over like 1,000 times in that game and just getting sacked consistently was brutal. I didn't watch the whole game, but I did catch some of the highlights, and it was just like, it was a low light reel for Sam Howell. And I think he has to kind of have a good game, and the wide receivers have to have a good game for Brian Robinson to kind of have a good game. But either way, he, that looks like a pretty solid hit. We lost JK early in the season. So there's just a few things that just haven't really gone our way. And like I said, that's, we're only on week 4 here. So moving forward, hopefully we can kind of, round out the team a little bit, make some trades, swing some things. Do you kind of want to talk about trades then this week?
Trades. What's a trade? I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it. Mike, I didn't even get a chance. I texted you about recording this podcast when we were going to start it up. And you're like, "Yep, I'll be on soon." And as soon as you said that, I get a notification from Sleeper, a trade has been completed. I'm like, "Oh boy."
Yep.
So I haven't even taken a look to see what it is. Let's break this down real quick.
You don't know what it is?
No, I literally have no idea.
Oh,
I
wow.
haven't even looked. This is the first time I'm looking right now. So
Okay.
this trade went down 18 minutes ago from this recording.
Yep.
Mr. Commish himself received Jimmy Garoppolo, Amari Cooper, and Jahmyr Gibbs, and sent off Keenan Allen and Miles Sanders. Wow. Huge move. But you did need to get that second QB. I like it. Amari Cooper has been pretty solid so far this year. That was kind of a worry for me kind of coming in. But he's obviously been a pretty solid stud. And Jahmyr Gibbs has a ton of upside. He plays against a super weak Packers run defense this week. So that could be pretty big for you.
Yeah. Now that the trade's been made, I can kind of reveal behind the curtain. So I was either looking at making a trade with Ben like that, or making a trade with you/Vice to get Fields. And I was debating in my head, do I give up Keenan Allen to try and get Fields? That was the debate. Or do I, because Fields is, God, everything coming out of that camp is bad.
Yeah.
If, maybe you want to wait to release this podcast until after you've traded him, because I'm going to say some pretty bad stuff about it. But did you see the press conference with Fields this week where he said basically,
I haven't seen it this week yet.
Oh, it was bad. He's like, you just have to appreciate the little things in life, like being able to play football, kind of like just being alive, your family members.
That sounds like a retirement speech.
3 weeks in, that's not what you want to hear. I don't think it's all Fields' fault. I think there's a lot of fault that's on Fields, but it's not all his fault. And apparently through the rumor mill, Chicago says that they don't, Eberflus won't have a problem benching Fields if he struggles. If he can't put up points against a team that scored, just had 70 scored on them, they won't have a problem going to whatever the guy's name is, Bargent, I forget.
Yeah, I have no idea who their backup is, to be honest with you.
I know it's just the name is like that. But anyways, and I'm like, oh my gosh, last year I dealt with Russell Wilson, Let's Ride, and that was just the worst experience of my life. That was so traumatizing. I was like, do I really want to have another quarterback that should be doing so much better? That I trade for him, I get him, and then every podcast, every sports show I listen to talks about how dog shit he is and how bad he is. And it's like, man, Keenan is the wide receiver 2 and the fantasy person, the third highest fantasy scorer of the year this year. He's killing it. So It was risky to go Fields. Ultimately, I decided to do this trade with Ben just because I think I'm capitalizing high on Keenan. I think Keenan can continue to do what he's doing. There's no Mike Williams for the rest of the year. Eckler's maybe coming back soon. Keenan's fantastic. I loved getting him for $25 in the draft, but I don't think I'm selling him low. I like Amari Cooper. He's been very solid. He's a good, guy to have to I'm going from Keenan down to Cooper. In my opinion, I'd much rather have Gibbs than Sanders. Gibbs' issues is going to be related to his workload and Montgomery and all that kind of stuff, but he's still a big play guy in an offense that's going to be successful. The Panthers was a team that I wanted to be in on coming into the year, and I just think you have to hit the eject cord and get out. Once Sanders scored that, I was with my brother who has Sanders in Dynasty, and once he scored that touchdown on Sunday last week, I said, Dave, we have to trade Sanders this week. We have to get rid of this guy. This is our opportunity. Now, he could have a good week this week against Minnesota, and maybe it was fine, but when I listen to the footballers and Jason talk about opportunities for Miles Sanders, all I think is you haven't watched a Panthers game because Chuba is in there all the time, stealing snaps, third down work.
Yeah, if you look at Miles Sanders' opportunities, 18 carries game 1, 14 carries game 2, only 9 carries game 3, getting a lot of targets for sure. But like you said, Chuba's in there, and Chuba's been effective.
Yeah, and he got a lot of targets last week because Dalton's in, and now Bryce is coming back, which means less targets because Young is just not. He's not good right now. He could be good, but right now he's not good.
Yeah,
Dalton's
he
got
looks like a rookie. Absolutely.
They threw the ball 58 times last week, so like he's not going to get 9 targets. I don't dislike Sanders. I just was disappointed with what I was hoping. I have him in all other leagues and stuff, but so moving on from that, and then yes, getting a second quarterback is you want to have 2 QBs. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a sexy name. Might be a sexy guy to some people, but he's not a sexy name. So, but I do love his weapons, and I think when you have elite weapons like 1-7 Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers and Josh Jacobs, you're gonna get production just by being around those guys. So he's fine for now. And I got his backup Hoyer in case he misses with a concussion.
Yeah, I think Garoppolo is a very serviceable thing, and the fact that you did have that hole on your QB2, that's a big deal. We've kind of talked about that. How it really, unless you have someone like, unfortunately this year, Justin Fields or Zach Wilson, you need a quarterback in that super flex position to really kind of make a run later down the road. But either way, we had a couple other trades this week. I believe you had another trade. You got Travis Kelce and Jamar Chase, and you sent the farm. You sent Chris Olave, AJ Dillon, Dallas Goedert, and Derek Carr to receive those guys. Obviously, this trade being with Chad C. Sterling 96, and he needed the help. His team, he did. I believe I think I played against him last week, and he did win.
No,
but
he played Erica.
Oh, I did last week.
Yeah, he played Erica last week.
Big Catfish, I played last week.
That's Eric.
Okay, I thought I played Sterling. Either way, he, his strategy, I'm not sure what it was. Kind of going into the draft, he drafted a ton of tight ends. I'm not sure. You technically can start 3 tight ends in this league if you really want. But I don't necessarily recommend that. So I do think it was a smart move for him. And it was a really good way for you to kind of upgrade your team at those positions too. Travis Kelce, obviously finally coming back, looking back into form. And just overall, Jamar Chase, you kind of were able to buy low on that. Where he wasn't producing, he needed the extra pieces, and you were able to snag him up. And I can't imagine that Jamar Chase will continue to be as bad as he was in the first couple weeks. Obviously had kind of a little bit of a get right game this past week, so that was obviously really good. But overall, like one of those things.
15 targets.
Yeah,
12 catches.
But Joe Burrow just
41 yards. Woo! T. Higgins couldn't catch a pass to save his life. Burrow still doesn't look right, but
yeah, that's the big thing. Burrow not looking fantastic. So a lot of Chase's production comes from Joe Burrow being able to throw the ball.
Yeah, that was the risk with that trade. So like getting Chase was my bust on last week's podcast. Or disappointment because he really had been. So there's risk with Chase, not because of Chase the player. No, I don't think anyone doubts him. But I still doubt Joe Burrow. I don't know what that's like. It's risky, but high upside. Kelce, welcome aboard, buddy. Like that feels good to get Kelce. And
you got him on the Taylor Swift game. It's fantastic. So
I know it was a good time to get him. And I have been so disappointed watching the New Orleans Saints and watching my quarterback run off the field and having Taysom Hill come in and take direct snaps, that at the time I made that trade, I was like, I don't want another Saints player at all. And then, of course, Carr gets hurt. I'm without a quarterback. Winston's out there. And I'm like, God, I got to get a Saints guy. And because I didn't get him, it's all the ripple waves. This trade with Ben now happened, which otherwise I don't think it would have. Because I didn't want to get rid of Keenan. I would have kept Keenan.
Yeah, like I said, does Chad have Jameis Winston, or
you do
in redraft? Oh yeah, That's right. We picked him up this week. I forgot.
You do.
I think I also have him in Dynasty,
Weiss
and
put
that's
in
why
the
I was
waiver
like,
claim for you and stole them from me.
yeah.
You
we
salty
went
little son of a
we
gun.
went pretty high on him. We don't really know how long the shoulder injury is going to keep Carr out. But obviously, when he does come back, he's going to be the guy.
I guess 2 to 3 weeks would be my guess.
But either way, I think that's a solid trade for both teams. He needed to kind of unload some stuff and get some more pieces. Olave is, despite everything that's been going on, the wide receiver 14. So he's been
Awesome.
solid.
He's had some
And so I
super
think
nice
it was good. You kind of were able to get in quick and scoop up Chase, which is nice. And obviously Kelsey being the stud that he is and probably will always be for the rest of his career until he decides to not play anymore.
I was essentially able to leverage a quarterback to upgrade skill players. And then I did kind of the inverse with my current trade year too. And that trade was wild. That came right down to the line. Like I had been working on that trade with Chad for 4 days. He was out of town for the weekend with no service. Calls me
That's
at
right. That was the
11:30.
one that you did right before I pulled up for the noon games on Sunday. I forgot.
Yeah, every time we're about to hang out, a trade just magically happens. But yeah, called me at 11:30, said he wouldn't have service for like half an hour, and I was like, Chad, we gotta figure this out if you want to do it. I think it went through at like 11:55 on the phone. Like it was a rush. I was pretty pumped at the time.
Oh yeah, you were all jacked up on that trade.
Mm-hmm.
We did have one other trade this week. This one between Justin J. Wald and Bob Jube, Doug Dimmadome, Mr. Adam Briggs himself, where Justin was able to get DK Metcalf, and he traded away DJ Moore and Jaden Reed. This one, I feel like this is a fairly kind of even trade. I really like the upside of DK, but Jaden Reed, kind of an emerging player a little bit, and DJ Moore looks like the only good thing on the Chicago offense right now. So at least if you're going to get a piece of the Chicago offense, DJ Moore is the guy to get.
Yeah.
11.6 last week in an absolute blowout game, and against Tampa Bay, 13.4. So not too bad at all. He's the wide receiver 41. Didn't have a great week 1. And DK, the wide receiver 21. Just again, solid player. I think he's going to be good moving forward. I think what we've seen from him so far this year is probably his floor. Like I can't imagine him playing worse than he has, and I don't think he's played poorly.
DJ Moore?
No, DK Metcalf.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Sorry, I moved on from DJ Moore and started talking about DK Metcalf. Yeah, he's basically hit his projection every week. He hasn't really had any of those breakout games, but how physical he is, 6'4", 235, I can only imagine that he is going to have some big games coming up here.
I think both those guys are playing near their floor, honestly. Like, how much worse can Justin Fields really get? Probably not much worse, at least. He had 11 completions for 99 yards last week, so I've looked at his stat line far too much in the last 2 days. But I do agree with you. Like my gut reaction was, oh yeah, Justin won that trade, but it's an even trade. I would rather have the better player, who I think is DK Metcalf. Better player, better offense, better quarterback. I don't really care about Jaden Reed. I know he's played well the first 3 weeks. He's a good player. It's nothing against him, but the Packers have been limited with their weapons and who they've had. Like Aaron Jones he played 3/4 of the first week? Yeah. And he's probably your top target getter on the team. And there's been no Christian Watson. Romeo Doubs came into week 1 hurt, and he's been kind of nursing and getting back. And you got a bunch of rooks out there too, like Musgraves and stuff. So Reed included. But when Jones comes back and Christian Watson comes back, is Jaden Reed still going to get as much work and targets as he had? Probably not. So I would just rather take DK than,
yeah, I agree. I definitely think it swings in Justin's favor with this trade, but I do think, the other two guys are serviceable and really kind of depth pieces, definitely. With Jaden Reed, you never know. We'll find out tonight. I think it will be a lot of question marks answered of, are the Packers contenders? This will be, for the division lead here tonight. The Packers are supposed to have Christian Watson back, Aaron Jones back. So we'll kind of see, I think tonight, even if those guys are on limited snap counts, how much more involved they're going to be, and where these other players that have kind of stepped up in their absence will be when they're in the lineup. So,
yeah. And soft tissue injuries tend to re-aggravate too. So just because Christian Watson and Aaron Jones are back doesn't mean that they're more susceptible to getting hurt again and having to leave. So we'll see. Reed's a good player. It's nothing against him. I just rather, in a 2-for-1, I'd rather have the better player.
100%. All right, let's move on. So this week, Mike, I wanted to do kind of a little game, kind of a fun little game here. I'm going to do a handful of fantasy keep, trade, cuts. Hopefully next week I will have a full drop for that.
Did you just come up with that idea? Keep, trade, cut? That's really clever. I've never heard of it before.
First time, original idea. You heard it here first on our league podcast. But yeah, so why don't we just kind of get into it? The first one that I thought was kind of interesting, and again, I didn't come up with these specifically myself. I am using a Keep Trade Cut website because I am not smart enough to come up with them on my own, I guess. But either way, the first one that I have here, Keep Trade Cuts, we have Alvin Kamara, Drake London, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. What are you thinking on this?
All right, so for the viewers at home, Hoppy told me he wanted to do Keep, Trade, Cut, and I said, sounds good, let's do it. This one, he told me about in advance. The other ones, I have no idea what these are going to be. So, this one I have an idea, though. The other ones will be a surprise. So, Kamara, Drake London, JSN. Okay. The guy that I would keep is Kamara because I see the most upside for him at this point. Like, sure, you could also nominate him as a trade guy. You're definitely not going to cut Kamara. With all the running back injuries, you're not getting cuts out of the question. So I would say keep Kamara. Then I would trade Drake London in hopes that I could get more. Well, I could. You can get more for Drake London than you can for JSN right now because both guys have struggled, but Drake London hasn't struggled as much. JSN has been, as a guy who owns him in Dynasty, JSN has been irrelevant. Now, I do think that there is some positives. Like he had a wrist injury that he had to have surgery on in the preseason, and it was unsure if he was even going to play. He was potentially going to be on the IR, miss the first 4 weeks, and come back afterwards. He's been able to play through it, but his volume, he had 1 catch last week. He had 5 catches the week before. Week 1, I don't know, maybe 3. He hasn't done much. He hasn't really balled out or impressed. Jake Bobo had a touchdown, a different undrafted rookie wide receiver for the team. So JSN is the cut. I wouldn't cut him, but he is the cut. Drake London's the trade. Kamara's the keep.
I think I'm pretty much on board with those the same way. I think that, Drake London has the star power name, and he has already shown, like you said, this week, you'll probably be able to get more for him. JSN definitely cut, but I think there's an argument to be made that you could keep Drake London and you could trade Alvin Kamara. It really would depend on it would really depend on your team scenario of, do you really need extra pieces? Like you said, running backs are hard to come by. There's been a lot of injuries so far this year, but we don't really know, if Kamara is going to be any good. So he might be something that somebody on another team wants to trade for. So there's an argument to be made, but I agree in the end. As a person that drafted J.K. Dobbins and already lost one of my starting running backs, keeping Kamara in this scenario, I think, would be really beneficial.
The only reason you keep, if you're going to have Drake London, you should trade him and get him off. The only reason that you keep Drake London is if you think they're going to bench Ritter, they're going to and fire Arthur Smith, and then let Heineke ball out. You kind of need both those things. I think Heineke goes in instead of Ritter. It's an improvement, but Arthur's a bad man, and he doesn't care about anyone's fantasy. It's why Bijan is somewhat limited too from where he should be. So
again, we saw this when he was the coach of the Titans.
get rid of your Falcons.
Was the Derrick Henry show. That's
Mhm.
what he wants to do. He wants to run the ball. He wants to establish it. Unfortunately, the Packers were on the receiving end of it. They just got worn down. Arthur Smith said, "I don't care if we're down in this game. We're going to run the ball." And in the fourth quarter, our defense, the Packers defense was tired, and it showed. And they were able to come back and win that game.
Yeah.
So that's what he wants to do. He's going to assert his dominance on the ground, whether that works in the long run or not. But Ritter kind of, again, has proven that he hasn't been a prolific passer by any stretch of the imagination. And honestly, Heineke, he's a hometown favorite. He grew up in Atlanta. So I know a friend of mine that actually went to high school with Taylor Heineke. So, but yeah, so he's a big Heineke guy. He's rooting for Heineke to come in and kind of replace Ritter. He kind of sees that, at least for the temporary fix. And ultimately, they will probably have to draft a quarterback. As much as we both love Heineke, he's not the future either. Neither of these guys are. But for a 1-year substitute, it's very, very viable that Ritter will get benched at some point. So, okay, next keep trade cut we got here. Wow, this is kind of a bizarre one. We have Deshaun Watson, Terry McLaurin, and Najee Harris. Mike, what are your thoughts?
This takes into effect Superflex?
This is taking into effect Superflex half-point PPR.
Okay. I'm going to keep Deshaun Watson because it's Superflex, and he's actually starting to look a little bit better. And losing Nick Chubb, he'll be more heavily relied on to be the passing game as opposed to the running game will be more the focal point unless they make a trade for JT or something. Unlikely with the Kareem Hunt signing. So I'm keeping Watson. It was McLaurin, and who was the other guy?
Najee Harris.
Yeah, I'm cutting him because he's worthless. He sucks.
He's bad.
And then McLaurin is in a league where there's no running backs. I would cut Najee. And then McLaurin is my trade. Or if you think there's someone that will trade you for Najee, then you trade him. Like if you have to cut McLaurin and you can get more for Najee, sure. Whoever you can trade for more, I don't think you can get anything for Najee, although somehow in a different league I got Diggs last week for him. So never say never. Make those trade offers, see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of like we were just saying with the Kamara thing, running backs are hard to come by. And they get hurt all the time. So even though he's bad, he might be a necessary piece on somebody because they lost a bunch of people. And you got to start 2 of them at minimum. So
yeah.
Some of those running backs that people are starting are not good. We thought Joshua Kelly after the Eckler injury would be a slam dunk, and he has been dog water so far. So I don't really have any complaints about this at all. I would do the exact same thing. I traded away Najee in our Dynasty League, obviously, in the offseason. And I didn't necessarily even want to, but now, hindsight's 2020. It looks like it was a amazing trade for me. Terry McLaurin really hasn't looked like himself so far this year, but again, I think that's a Sam Howell problem, less a Terry McLaurin problem. Like when you get sacked that much, I think I heard on the Footballers today, they said Sam Howell is on pace for like 123 sacks or something like that. Wow. And they referenced Derek Carr's brother. I can't remember his first name, but David Carr. They said that one season he got sacked 76 times, and the next year he was no longer in the league. So Sam Howell on pace for 50 more sacks than that right now. That's not good.
Sam Howell's like Desmond Ritter. It's the, these guys could take the step forward. Nope, they're both not. And that's why Jacoby Brissett got rostered this week too. Jackie, my wife, stole him from me. I was going to have him, but it's not training well. The only argument, I guess, with Najee about if you're going to do something funky and you want to trade Watson, maybe you want to trade Watson because he's been doing good. Maybe you want to cut McLaurin. I don't know. But Najee's maybe better than some of the waiver wire guys that you could start, but that's not saying much of anything. You should cut him. And the worst thing you did to Pat, not only did you trade Najee to him, but the guy that is so trigger happy at making trades, you made him promise to not trade him and keep him until week 1. So he had to deal with that landmine. Like, what a
that was
take this
because
grenade,
I didn't want to
wait
see
until
him.
it explodes, and then you can do whatever without your limbs now.
I didn't want to see Najee end up on a team a day later. I'm like, all right, because I know that's not necessarily fair of me to like say that, but it was more of a joke. Like, hey, can we have this non-trade clause? I want to see him play for your team. I don't want you to just ship him off right away because, like you said, he loves trading as well. Usually pulls the trigger impulsively sometimes, and I just really wanted to, see him do something. I want Najee to succeed. I liked him his rookie year. There was a reason I got him in Dynasty. But ultimately he does not look good this year. I heard he like put on some weight in the offseason as well. So I don't know if that's part of it, but he isn't hitting the hole. He's looking a little bit slow. So either way, we're cutting him.
It was unintentional weight gain. And yeah, Warren snap counts are going up, and yeah, it's not good. And the offense looks really bad too. Pittsburgh is struggling. So
all right. Well, I don't know any of these players. I'm going to click that button because my page isn't loading. Oh, hold on. I think it's just my computer being a little bit weird right now. Okay, this is not one that I'm going to do either, unfortunately. We got like some defenses and stuff in this one. Okay, I got a good one here. Keep trade cuts. Miles Sanders, George Kittle, Travis Etienne.
Okay, the keep is easy. That's Etienne. That's easy.
Is Etienne, I haven't really paid too much attention. I thought he was struggling a little bit. Oh, he is the RB13. So, no, that is not true.
Yeah, and
RB6 week 1, RB9 week 3. Had a bad week against Kansas City, but a lot of people are going to have bad weeks against Kansas City.
And there was worry about like Tank Bigsby coming in and how much was he going to steal. I mean, he stole 2 touchdowns. So that's worth noting, obviously, through 3 weeks. But he has like basically no snap role with his team. Etienne is a workhorse. I think I don't have it up in front of me, but I feel like he's been targeted out of the backfield too from a reception standpoint. So
yep, 13 total targets on the year with 11 catches. So
4.5 a week.
Pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, so Etienne's my keep, and then I should say my trade would be Sanders because I just traded him today. I would trade tight ends. Who cares about tight ends? I think you can get more for Sanders than you could for Kittle. So trade would be Sanders. Cut is Kittle, but you don't want to cut Kittle ever, actually.
I know.
I will say, though, if Ayuk is back and Debo's back and all the guys are there, it's tough to rely on any of those skill guys when everyone's healthy. Now, everyone's almost never healthy at the same time. But what do you think?
Yeah, I don't really have any problems again. Etienne, I didn't really look at his production. I knew he had one of the bad weeks, so I wasn't quite sure. Obviously looking at it, he's the running back 13 on the year. And as you said, I think the big worry coming in was, is Tank Bigsby gonna take anything away from him? And he did snipe those touchdowns, but he's only had 9 total opportunities. So he's basically irrelevant. He will not be really taking anything away. And he's only had 2 targets. So yeah, he's basically not in the game. I think that in this scenario with Miles Sanders and George Kittle, I might try to trade George Kittle. I think he's got a little bit more of name recognition, and can have those like boom weeks. Whereas Miles Sanders is more of like a volume, kind of a high floor play. He's not necessarily, at least on Carolina and the way that offense looks, I don't think he's necessarily going to have these just monster like win your weeks. Whereas George Kittle can definitely have that.
Sure.
And that's why I think that like if you're talking about what you're going to get more, even though tight end landscape is just a wash all around besides Kelsey and Mark Andrews when he's healthy. But that's where I kind of disagree with you a little bit. I would probably cut Sanders in this scenario, and I would trade George Kittle. I think you can just get a little bit more on the market for it.
You might be able to. Yeah.
It's
He's got
it's
a bigger
it's
name.
close. I think this is the closest one out of the 3 that we've had so far. Of like, what do you really do in this scenario? I think the keeps have been a little bit easier, but as far as cutting and trading, it's like, okay, can you actually get a value from these players? But yeah, I would say George Kittle. I would trade and I would cut Miles Sanders. So
Miles Sanders isn't a bad player. There's no indictment against him. It's just his role isn't quite as much. I think his opportunities are overshadowing his split backfield role on the team. And the offense hasn't looked good. Bryce Young hasn't looked good. Sanders looked fine. He doesn't look bad when he's out there running, making plays. He's going to have good weeks. So,
yeah. The consensus on that on this website says everybody kept ETN. Or actually, they said they differed. So it said most people would keep George Kittle, trade ETN, and cut Miles Sanders. So a little bit of a different thing. I don't know how many people have actually submitted for this one specifically, but that's what the website says. So kind of interesting what the fantasy community kind of disagrees on here. So everybody has their own little things. I think that's kind of a fun little game. We'll have to do more moving forward. Yeah. But that kind of brings us into our main segment, the reason why everybody comes in here, listens to the podcast. Let's go into the matchups this week. Let's see here. Let's do this little button here, and we'll move over to our matchups.
Look at that. How beautiful.
Yeah, there we go. So hopefully this is clear for everybody. And so, as always, I'll start with my matchup. We'll move into Mike's, and then we'll just kind of go right down the list, make it a little easier. So I am playing Jackie this week. We have Too Many Cooks versus Fins for the Wins here. I'm projected 104.53. Jackie is projected 109.83. So Jackie is 5-1. I am 0-6, unfortunately, as stated before. And I don't know. I think
we're going on record, right? Are we going to start monitoring these picks starting this week, or are we going to include last week too?
Let's start monitoring moving forward. So we'll try to monitor to see.
So we'll have a competition to see who is better at picking the winners, me versus Hoppy, and we'll keep tabs on this.
All right, but let's kind of go down the list here. I've got Josh Allen, Brian Robinson, Javonte Williams, Chris Godwin, Michael Thomas, Brandon Cooks, Kyle Pitts, Tutu Atwell, and rounding out my unbelievable team here, Justin Fields, obviously. Jackie, Geno Smith, Raheem Mostert, Austin Eckler, Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans, Jacoby Myers, Darren Waller, Ramondre Stevenson, and Desmond Ridder. Initial thoughts here are my team is probably not going to win this week. Then again, I don't know if Jackie has a viable substitute for. I guess she has Chuba Hubbard. I was thinking Austin Eckler. I don't know if he plays. Do we have?
I don't think he's going to play. I don't think he's going to play.
I don't think he's playing either. So on her bench, Joshua Kelly, who we've seen come in, not be effective on the ground.
You start
Chuba Hubbard or Jalen Warren.
You start
are probably going to get the starts.
Yeah, Warren against Houston's not bad.
Yeah, against Houston is a good one. I mean, Minnesota has not been too fantastic either. So Chuba against Minnesota, obviously, he's been getting in there. He's been getting a decent amount.
Not as much as Sanders still.
Only one rushing attempt last week. Really more involved in the passing game, but Miles Sanders is the dude. Yeah, I'd probably go with Jalen Warren personally myself. I think this might be the week that Fields actually goes off. And I'm not just trying to boost my confidence level here. But Denver gave up 70 points. Denver is bad. somebody has to win this game. They can't. Well, that's not necessarily true. I suppose it could end in a tie.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't. The odds of it ending in a 0-0 tie where nobody is effective, I just don't see that happening. Something's got to give here.
Yeah,
and
someone will throw a pick six.
I hope it's not Justin Fields.
He's already thrown 2 of those. So
I don't want to talk about it. But I think that's the key thing for me. If Justin Fields can kind of get right this week against a really bad defense, a really good matchup for him to actually succeed, I think maybe this could be a turning point. Not necessarily where he's going to be the star that everybody wanted him to be for fantasy, but at least getting his confidence back where he can start making those decisions where he's either pulling the trigger, throwing the ball, or pulling it down and running. That was why he was so effective last year, and we haven't seen that this year. And my wide receivers are absolute booty. So versus I'm playing Stephon Diggs and Mike Evans are the 2 of the top wide receivers in the league.
Yeah, Myers ain't bad either.
Yeah, and Myers has been he missed last week with the concussion, right?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago? Okay.
Yeah, he played last week.
So, and then Mostert coming off his 50-point game or whatever, 41.7. Yeah, insane.
Myers
I don't think that will
week.
continue every week, but he's going to be a very viable starting running back moving forward too.
And Myers played last week, had another 12 targets, 7 catches, 85 yards, 12 fantasy points. Okay, so her team on paper looks better. I don't think that's much to dispute. Josh Allen against Miami could be huge for you. That should be a fun game to watch. And Mostert might struggle against Buffalo. Like, Buffalo's a really good defense. Brian Robinson against Philly. Don't love that.
Don't love that.
Javonte against Chicago should be a good game. I don't like your receivers.
Nope.
Godwin is, Godwin misses Brady. Michael Thomas is good for 8 points a week. Let's see, 8, 9, and 8. Yeah, that was pretty good call there. Good for 8 points a week. Cook sucks. That offense is, I think he's washed. Pitts, you don't want to start a skill player in Atlanta if it's not Bijan. Tutu's been good.
Tutu's fine. For a flex play especially, he's fine.
You could consider whether or not you want to start Fields or Jameis. You really could.
It's a conversation that probably will happen between me and Vice.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't really, Zay Jones not going to play this week. When he was out there in week 1, he looked good. And then he's been hurt ever since. Yeah. So I think Trevor Lawrence kind of needs him out there. Ridley's slowly declining in production, at least week to week. So Ridley also needs him out there. I need him out there. Please, for the love of God, I need some reasonably viable receiver. I think that Brandon Cooks could ultimately turn the season around. It's been a little weird so far with week 1 where the offense didn't even have to be out there, and then they had I don't know what was going on with him against the Cardinals this past week, but I don't think he's going to be like a high-end wide receiver 2 or anything, but I can see him kind of low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, kind of towards the end of the season. New England is a weird matchup because they're going to try to get rid of CeeDee Lamb out of the picture. So it'll be Michael Gallup or Brandon Cooks kind of getting more targets than usual. And we'll see what really happens there. But Mike, do you think me or Jackie?
So looking at Jackie's team real quick too. So Mostert might struggle. Eckler may not play. Stephon Diggs kind of washes with Allen. Mike Evans is playing against Marshawn Lattimore, which means he may not play 4 quarters. He might get ejected in quarter 1 because they always fight every week. Jacoby could be her star. And then Ramondre plays Dallas. I don't think it's she's got tough matchups. I'm going to choose Jackie because she's 5-1. You're 0-6.
Yep.
Her players are better. But I don't think I wouldn't be surprised either way with this one. I don't know if either of these teams will hit the median. I could see both teams being under the median.
Yeah, I think if I win, I don't hit the median. So I think I go 1-1 because the only way I see me winning Eckler, who's probably not going to play, and then whatever running back she decides doesn't necessarily play well. And again, she has some tough matchups, but I think if I do win, I do not hit the median. I think you're right about that.
Yeah. So I'll go Jackie.
All right.
That's my pick. And you're picking?
I picked Jackie as well.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
That's the right
as much
pick.
as I want to pick myself, I got to pick Jackie because that's what it looks like. And I try to be as unbiased as I can. It doesn't always necessarily work that way, but that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. So, Mike, let's go over your matchup next. We got the commish here, Booty Cheeks, which, again, I don't know if that name is going to be fitting very much longer after all of the acquisitions that you did over the past week or so.
Just a great
against everybody's favorite gritty monster, Pat Howard. Pat Howard's at 4-2. You are at 4-2. Mike, you are projected 109.55. Pat, 106.92. So a very tight matchup here. Let's go over your lineup. We got Lamar Jackson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Elijah Mitchell, Jamar Chase, Amari Cooper, Zay Flowers, Travis Kelce, Josh Downs, and Jimmy Garoppolo. I like it. Honestly, like the trades that you made, your lineup is very filled out at this point in the season. I think you got a good shot here. Like if everybody kind of produces moving forward, I think you got a really good shot of going further and going deep into the playoffs if your team keeps producing the way they have been so far. Yeah. On Pat's side of the field, Dak Prescott, Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, George Pickens, George Kittle, Hollywood Brown, and Mac Jones. So this might be the matchup of the week. I'm going to be honest. This is we got some good players. Mike, do you have any concerns about anybody on your team, or have you noticed something that I may or may not miss? What are your thoughts?
This matchup's going to be crazy. I think both teams will probably eclipse the median, but Pat's got a heck of a team. He's running a good. He's doing good this year. He's making good. I like most of his trades. He's got a very solid team here. He's got some matchup like Mac and Dak playing each other.
That'll be tough.
That's not great. But Etienne and Walker, whew. And then Devontae, A.J. Brown, yikes. Kittle, I don't know what's going to happen with that 49ers game, but there's guys I'm concerned about on the other team. And my team is still, we need JT to come back. Losing Nick Chubb, if I still had Nick Chubb, dear God, this league would be in trouble.
I think if you have those players, you don't make the trades that you have either way, necessarily.
No, I would have made all those trades. I would have made all those trades. I'd take Chase.
Fair enough. I think for me, looking at your team, the biggest question marks are the running backs. Is Gibbs going to get the volume? It's a juicy matchup. Packers have been soft on their rush defense for 5 years now. Just you want a good production, you can start him against the Packers. So it'll really be is he going to get the touches necessary? David Montgomery is expected to play tonight, I believe. So how involved is he coming back into the offense? In week one, I thought Gibbs looked way more explosive than Montgomery. Every time he grabbed the ball, it looked like a train running full speed ahead. Yep. It was busy. And Elijah Mitchell versus Arizona, I don't really like it.
Yeah.
We've kind of talked already so far in the podcast. You got to start somebody, unfortunately. Yeah. But Jamar Chase, Amari Cooper, those are really good.
Oh, yeah.
Really great wide receivers to have to go against two studs in A.J. Brown and Devontae Adams. You're going to need production from those guys. And I think Tennessee has a pretty stout rush defense. So Jamar Chase could see the bulk of the targets here and be a stud in that matchup. And Amari Cooper, tough interdivision rivalry matchup between Cleveland and Baltimore. They are at home. So that could be a huge thing. I've noticed last year I had Amari Cooper in our dynasty league, and when he played at home, he was amazing. 20 plus points a week. When he went on the road, 7. So if he's at home, I think he can have a really good week. Travis Kelce, not really worried about him. Doesn't really matter about the matchup. Garoppolo coming back from the injury, but Downs has looked great so far as a rookie. Look, 12 targets last week against Baltimore.
Yep.
8 for 57.
Yep.
And that was a Minshew game. But even before Minshew, he was still he got 5, and that was the game that Richardson got injured right away in the first quarter in week 2, right?
Yep.
And so still involved, 7 targets. So it didn't really matter which quarterback, he's going to be involved in the game plan somehow. So I could see that being really beneficial. As I like that as a flex play. I really do.
Yeah. And honestly, even before that, like DJ Chark against Minnesota isn't bad either. Especially if Mingo doesn't play.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Pat has the better team at this point in the year. So I will choose Pat to win.
Okay.
I'm going to need some stuff to go right. Like Jimmy. Oh, he was at practice today. That's good. So
woo, go Jimmy.
Jimmy will probably play. And he, against the Chargers, that could be a high scoring game. So, but if it is, it's probably because of Devontae Adams, who he has.
Yeah.
So I think in order to win, I'm going to need like Lamar to throw a touchdown or 2 to Zay Flowers. I just need to have some kind of big luck stuff because Mitchell may not do anything. I could roll the dice and go with McKinnon. Like, I don't know. Is that a 3:00 game? Yeah, it's probably if I need a floor play, I'll go Mitchell at that. If I need a ceiling one, I'll switch and go McKinnon. But until I get JT back, because I have JT on this team too.
Yep, I see that.
Once he comes back, then I'll feel a whole lot better in a big star matchup like this. But I'm gonna choose Pat.
Yeah, it's tough. If JT was here, I would lean more you for sure. But honestly, I'm still gonna pick you.
Okay.
I think we have to defer a little bit here. And as much as I think that there's some great talent over here, and playing against Devontae Adams when you have the quarterback kind of hurts. Every touchdown's thrown, it's negative. Basically, you're losing points almost. But Josh Jacobs has yet to really emerge this year. Chargers defense has been a little bit soft against running backs as well. So I think that could be potential like upside, that he could kind of get more involved and take a little bit away from Devontae. But the biggest thing for me is I don't like the quarterback matchup here. Sure. Mac against Dallas. I think that could be disastrous, and vice versa. Dak against New England. I think that, and we've talked about the importance of quarterbacks in our Superflex league. I think that's going to be a huge factor in the game. I think that'll play a bigger factor than any of the negatives that I would really have against your team. And Lamar finally, I feel like finally kind of coming around from that slow week 1.
Kind of.
Rushed for 100 yards last week. So, and that's what we want to see. 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, that's why you draft Lamar Jackson.
Or trade,
because he can get it done and he can blow up for 40 points. It is a tough matchup against Cleveland, but kind of seeing him kind of turn it around here. And I like the stack with Zay Flowers. So if he does happen to toss one up to Zay, I mean, you're double dipping. So
yeah, Zay's had a lot of red zone targets too. He just hasn't gotten the end zone. This could be the week. I just think Pat's running backs are too much better than mine at this point. But
I agree with that. I think this again, I think might be the matchup of the week. Really close to call. I do, like I said, I lean slightly in your favor, but it is a coin flip. But I'll go with you to win this week. I think both teams are hitting the median. Absolutely. I think this is going to be like a 121 to 125 kind of game. I think it's going to be a big game.
All right. Well,
so
that's
you
exciting.
You heard it here, Mike.
I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong.
All right. So let's move on to our next matchup here. We are going to be doing Team Nick Seacott versus Team Sneaky Nico. So Nick versus Erica. Nick, 2-4, projected 105.41 points. Sneaky Nico, I believe, is the only team worse than my team. 0-6, projected 91.63. And I don't mean that it's actually worse. I mean, in the standings, she is the only team below me. I think I'm 13th. But so let's go over Nick here. We got Matthew Stafford, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, Nico Collins, Brandon Ayuk, David Njoku, David Montgomery, and Russell Wilson rounding his team out. And Erica, Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Rashad Penny, T. Higgins, Tyler Lockett, Drake London, Dalton Kincaid, Zach Charbonnet, and Trevor Lawrence. What are your initial thoughts here, Mike?
Erica is going to get her first W of the year.
Whoa!
Yeah. And she might exceed the median. So she's got Kamara that comes back. I think Kamara could be good. So she gets to get Penny out of that lineup, who doesn't even belong on a roster. And she gets to insert Kamara up there. I still don't love having to start Charbonnet, but, you know, maybe she goes Mims and just goes for a high play, or maybe she gets somebody off waivers. But if you look at Nick's team, Derrick Henry, anybody that's been watching football knows there's red flags surrounding that guy. Tony Pollard's great, but then after that, it's, I don't know, like Montgomery coming back, limited action, and Njoku's been kind of a non-factor. Ayuk coming back from an injury. Calvin Ridley's kind of disappointed. Let's ride the old man, Russ and Stafford. And I think Erica is basically Team Bengals. And I think the Bengals you can put up points on Tennessee.
Yeah, so, I think they can right the ship this week. It's been an ugly ride so far. If you've been watching the Bengals play, Joe Burrow still dealing with the injury. And they've honestly, I think they've played in some like rainy games, like 2 out of the 3 games that there's been rain. And week 1 was really bad, if I remember correctly. Not saying that makes up for their poor performance by any means, but it can play a factor in lack of production in some aspects of it. I mean, Mixon's going to be a tough matchup. As I said, Tennessee's got a really good rush defense. But that on the other side, they have a really terrible pass defense. So Joe Burrow and T. Higgins been very roller coaster ride so far. A goose in week 1 as a person that has him in one of my other leagues. But then dominated in week 2, 8 for 89, 2 touchdowns, and then back to garbage week 3. So maybe he has a bounce back week this week against Tennessee if the yo-yo or the pendulum kind of swinging in those directions. Derrick Henry getting out touched by Tajay Spears is not a good sign for Derrick Henry. And this is from a guy that loves Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
But Tony Pollard, it's a tough matchup, but you know, I don't really know. Dallas has said they want to run the ball a lot this year. And we really haven't seen Dallas and in its full potential in the offense yet. In my personal opinion, they got to take week 1 off. They looked bad last week against the Cardinals, who I thought were tanking, but seemed to try to be competitive in all of these games. I don't really know what's going on with that organization, but this will be a tough matchup for Tony Pollard. Calvin Ridley again hasn't looked that great. Nico's looked great.
Yeah.
I believe I had him as a breakout. Nico's been solid so far, and because Houston's defense can't stop anybody, he will continue to be productive because Stroud has kind of proven that he's the guy, which there were question marks kind of going into the season. Is Stroud going to be any good? And even though they're in negative game scripts, he's throwing the ball a lot, and Nico is seeing a lot of those targets. Did Ayuk practice then? I don't really know what's going on. Oh my God, what is going on here?
He sheds his non-contact jersey today.
Okay.
So I think he's gonna play.
So he'll probably play.
But
Njoku's like whatever,
temper expectations for Ayuk coming back. Like when guys come back off injuries, you don't want to be overly bullish on their production and what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So
Nick's got
honestly,
a lot.
Nick's
I
team
think you're
should win.
right. I think you're right. I think Kamara obviously gets substituted in. And you could put Mims in there for sure. There's just Nick's got a lot of injuries. He's got a lot of bad matchups this week. I don't know if either team hits the median necessarily. I'm gonna still give the edge to Nick.
That's probably the right call. I'm going out on a limb here choosing Erica because even if she puts in Kamara, she's still going to be projected to lose. I would definitely switch Charbonnet.
But it's a lot closer. She gets boosted by what? Almost 10 total points there after that.
Yeah, it's closer.
So
Charbonnet.
But if the Bengals are bad, that's when Erica is going to be bad because she's team Bengals. So if they can do well, then she has a really good shot at winning. They have yet to prove that. So
with the dog team that she has, a guy like Charbonnet is not. You don't want that guy in your starting lineup unless you have to. You want to put in a boom guy like Marvin Mims for sure. So she should, and maybe she just hasn't looked at the in your lineup yet. But I will go. My official pick will be Erica, even though I think Nick should win. I'm gonna
go Nick.
Yeah.
I don't think either team hits the median though. I think it'll be Nick will go 1-1 this week. But all right, let's move on to the next matchup here. We got Chad C. Sterling, Show Me Your TDs versus Ben Howard, Mayfield of Dreams. Chad 1-5, projected 98.26 points. Mayfield of Dreams, Ben Howard projected 99.78. He is also 1-5. So let's go over these lineups here. We got Chad with Jalen Hurts, Najee Harris, A.J. Dillon, Chris Olave, Jordan Addison, Gabe Davis, Dallas Goedert, Adam Thielen, and Tyler Algier. And Ben Howard has Daniel Jones, Miles Sanders with the world's longest nickname. It literally doesn't even fit on his side of the roster. Zach Moss, Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer, Garrett Wilson, Tyler Higbee, Tyler Boyd, and Baker Mayfield. Mike, what are your thoughts on this matchup here?
Looking at this matchup, I feel very confident that my team will hit the median this week. That was my first thought looking at this matchup. It's not like I love Keenan, right? But do you want Keenan and Palmer both starting? Like, not really.
What did Palmer have last week here?
He got in the end zone, I think. Yeah. So
4 for 7, 66 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want two Chargers. Keenan, obviously, the one that I would want. Palmer can be like a spot start, but I don't know necessarily if I would want him in this particular matchup. But
yeah, Chad really should have put a bid in and got Jameis Winston. I thought that would be who I would be competing with, not, co-manager Vice waking up morning of and setting one to screw me over. But because he just made a trade to get a second QB, and then Carr goes out, so now his guys he's playing down there, Algier and Thielen, it's not bad either. Like, I don't know if I'd start AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon's been.
Don't start AJ Dillon, especially with. But who else does he start here?
Robert Woods, KJ Osborne. Anybody?
So you're saying put Algier in for AJ Dillon, and then move somebody into the flex. Yeah, I think that's a smarter choice. Absolutely. AJ Dillon's crap. He's proven that he can't run the ball.
In an ideal world, he would have got Jameis to put in a super flex. He'd put Algier in over AJ Dillon. You hope and pray for Najee against Houston, which could be positive. And then besides that, like the rest of his guys have played well. Gabe
Davis has been good. Chris Olave's been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Thielen. Thielen kind of really emerged with no Bryce Young, but obviously didn't play bad in week 2 either. But still that potential of, we kind of know what the floor is now with the 2 targets in week 1. But again,
Super
I think
solid.
as Bryce Young gets a little bit more acclimated into that offense, Thielen will still see an increase in targets. Maybe not on the Andy Dalton level of targets, but still maybe more of like a week 2 kind of target share. But
I think this matchup's going to be very close. I think it's hard to pick a winner. There's things I like about both teams. Like on Ben's team, I like Keenan. I like Zach Moss. I like the fact that he has 2 quarterbacks. On Chad's team, Jalen, Olave, all of Chad's receivers look pretty good, actually.
yeah.
I think I'm going to go Chad to win. But I don't think there's a clear right answer here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is a really, really close matchup. I'm actually leaning more to Ben's side of the field. I think if if Chad moves around some of his roster a little bit, taking AJ Dillon out of the lineup, which I don't know if he'll actually hear this before the matchup starts, but I would start there absolutely and try to get some sort of a little bit, more upside. You could put Woods in there. I think KJ Osborne could be a beneficiary. Minnesota's throwing like a million yards. So, yeah, Kirk is on pace for it's like 6,000 yards still. Like it's insane. But I think the main thing that really kind of brings me over to Ben's side is the fact that he does have 2 quarterbacks. Mayfield is he's got a tough matchup against New Orleans, but he's proven that he does not mind slinging the ball around. No. He likes doing it. He likes taking the deep shots with Mike Evans. Who knows, again, if Mike Evans will actually play the whole game? We don't know. He will probably start a fight with Marshawn Lattimore at some point. It'll be good television for everybody. Garrett Wilson's tough. Josh Palmer's tough. But I think overall with the 2 quarterbacks, and again, Chad's still got to move some stuff around in his lineup. And now if he does that, I would probably lean Chad. But currently, I'll take Ben. I'll take Ben.
I don't think Chad's going to move anything because Derek Carr was in his lineup, so he's definitely going to tinker with it before the Thursday night game. And who knows? Maybe we'll both be wrong. Maybe AJ Dillon will score 2 touchdowns and surprise us all. I doubt it, but yeah.
All right, we got 3 more matchups to get through. Hopefully, we can kind of power through these here. Next matchup I got is Justin. I don't know what's going on versus Doug Dimmadome, Bob Jube. Kind of crazy. They did a trade earlier and they're playing this week. But Adam Briggs over on the other side. Justin sitting at 4-2, projected 109.29. Briggs 4-2, 109.34. This is definitely the closest projection I think I've really ever seen. 0.05 difference, which is pretty insane. Justin's lineup: Tua Tagovailoa, James Conner, Rashad White, DK Metcalf, Puka Nacua, Christian Watson, Mark Andrews, the Gus Bus, Gus Edwards, and Justin Herbert. Over on Briggs' side here, we have Jared Goff, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Darnell Mooney, DJ Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, Jaden Reed, Hunter Henry, Christian McCaffrey, and Jordan Love. Mike, what do you got here?
Briggs's running backs are so much better and have better matchups than Justin's. Justin has the better quarterbacks with Tua and Herbert, and I don't like Briggs's receivers that much. But Justin's like Watson just coming back. If Watson could have 3 touchdowns today, but Puka a little bit less involved. DK Metcalf, he's great. This is really tough. I feel like I typically align more with teams that Justin drafts, and I undervalue the guys that Briggs goes with usually. I'm going to say Briggs wins just because his running backs are so much better. And if tonight's game is high scoring, like he has both Goff and Love going tonight. So I think we'll have a pretty good idea of this matchup after tonight, because you'll have Goff, Jones, Jalen Reed, Jordan Love, Christian Watson all playing tonight. And Justin's running backs, Connor against the Niners Rashad White against the Saints. And Gus against the Browns. Like, his running backs play the three best defenses. Well, maybe New Orleans isn't the top three, but three amazing defenses for sure. Like, that is not easy. The Baltimore game is a divisional one, so it may not be as high scoring. I go Briggs, and I don't know if these guys listen to the podcast, so if they don't, we don't have to talk about it as long either.
I think I know Justin does for sure. I don't know if Briggs does, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think tonight obviously is going to play a huge factor in who wins this game. There's a lot of pieces involved on both sides. Now, I would be lying if I wasn't rooting for Briggs a little bit here. I apologize, Justin, but he has a lot of my dynasty pieces, so I also need the success of those guys. He's starting the same quarterbacks. He's starting Aaron Jones. But on your side, Christian Watson. I'm also, I believe, going to be starting Christian Watson this week in our dynasty league. Yeah, I mean, I will give it to Briggs probably too. Christian McCaffrey in your flex. I mean, easily could have just put him in a normal running back spot, but the running backs here are great, and like you said, they have really good matchups. Arguably, but overall, I think this is going to be really close. I can see Tua could go absolutely nuclear again this week. It's a tougher matchup, but having such good offenses play against each other, you could see an extremely high-scoring game where Tua throws for 504 touchdowns.
How many fantasy points do you think Tua scores?
This week?
Your projections. How many do you think he scores?
I would say, man, this is a tough one here. I'm going to go 28 points.
Oh my gosh. Give me the under.
I think he goes off this week.
We need to establish
Waddle's coming back from Waddle came back from concussion protocol.
Yeah.
So he'll be there. We've obviously seen their running game. Now Buffalo is not going to be Denver, and part of the reason they scored 70 points was because Denver just gave up. They at some point they just said, "You know what? We're calling it a day. Let's just try to get out of this game," and the Miami Dolphins are walking the walk and they're talking the talk this year for sure. Tyreek, I did the math. He is on pace for 2,337 yards. So, and he's an X factor. It does not matter who he plays against. He could absolutely destroy you. Sometimes he has some quiet games, but I'm expecting that to be very high scoring. I'm expecting that to be my favorite game to watch this week. From a fantasy perspective, I think it's going to be super enjoyable and fun, very high scoring. I think DK Metcalf could also blow up. He plays the Giants. And again, I think we've seen DK so far at his floor. 12, 10, 14 points. I think he could have a really big game this week. Watson could have a big game this week. He's got a lot of potential boom players on his side versus like Briggs' side, I feel like has the higher floor overall than Justin's. Where like Briggs' team won't shit the bed. They'll be competitive this week no matter what, even if a couple of his players don't perform that well. But Justin's team could be 80 points or 130 points, depending on what all goes down. I think, again, tonight is going to be a huge thing because Herbert versus Vegas, that could be a huge game for Herbert as well. So did I say I was taking Justin over Briggs here? I'll take Justin over Briggs.
Okay.
I think you had some valid points, though, with the running backs. It's going to be tough, but I think Justin's team kind of prevails. I think both teams hit the median. Are your thoughts on that?
Briggs is going 2-0 for sure. Or I should say he's going to get the median. I think this is a great matchup, so I can't say 2-0 for sure. I agree with you about Justin's boom bust. I also think I think the Buffalo Bills are going to beat the Dolphins. Shocker, because apparently everyone loves the Dolphins, and I think they'll contain the offense. I think it will still be the best game to watch. I don't think it will be the best fantasy game to watch. It's in Buffalo. Buffalo is already getting disrespected, and Tua and the Dolphins are fast, but they're kind of soft. So I think, I mean, who knows? It could be a track meet, in which case everyone in the Dolphins are faster, so they win. But I think Buffalo's gonna win. I will take
All
Greg.
right.
And yeah, I think Justin has a very good chance to get the median.
All right, next matchup here. We got Astronaut TV, Kirill, Pokeballers himself, 2-4 versus my arch nemesis, Dave, the specially special Ruby, who's sitting at 5-1. Pokeballers projected 114.04. Dave projected 108.82. Let's see here. Kirill has Anthony Richardson, Bijan Robinson, James Cook, Justin Jefferson, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, Sam Laporta, Don. How do I say his name now? I can't remember.
Just say
Achan.
Achan. He can change his name, but we don't have to.
Devon Achan, Kenny Pickett, Dave over here, Kirk Cousins, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Gerald Everett, Alexander Madison, Brock Purdy. Mike, what do you got here?
Krill's team is very, very, very good. It's a very hard team to beat, especially when they're healthy. Kenny Pickett kind of sucks, but Richardson's coming back. Don't get concussed, please. Dave's team I feel like Dave's team is just getting lucky to be 5-1. Like, Kirk has been amazing. Jacobs has struggled. Kyron's been great, but I think he'll come back down to earth a little bit. I don't think he'll continue to be,
Yeah, I mean, touches has gone down 15 to 14 to 10.
Yeah.
And
Waddle hasn't had a boom game yet, so that could happen. Devonta Smith, he's great. Jeudy has kind of struggled out of actually, I guess he had a decent week last week. This should be a fun matchup.
Oh, he didn't play week 1, so.
Yeah, this should be a fun matchup. I think both teams are good. I think I'm going to pick Kirill's team, and it'll be curious to see what happens with Madison with Akers this week too. But I will take Kirill's team to win. I think both teams are good. Kirill's just got, a lot of firepower over here. So, and I'm very curious to see what happens with that man, Devon Achan. By the way, if you're going to call him Achan, I think his first name is different too. He changed it to like
It's not Devon
instead of Devon. I don't know. Every name's changing. It's funny how football players do this.
I just don't understand. So this is a little offshoot. I just don't understand how you clearly are a notable player. You made it to the NFL. That means you played for a notable college, most likely.
I think
you had all of this time where people have been pronouncing your name a different way, and then you finally have an explosion of a game, and then you're like, actually, you've been mispronouncing it this entire time.
Yeah.
What took you so long? Why did it take 5 years of them saying it wrong for you to finally be like, actually, guys, it's this way? Yeah. Just say it right away. Just say it right away.
Agreed.
I agree with you. Kirill's team, I don't know how. I didn't look at his matchups we have, but I don't remember his matchups and what happened that he's lost.
He has the most points scored against him in the league.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did say that. Yep, yeah. That makes sense then. Because, Kirill's team, like, looking at it on paper, is good.
Jefferson, he's also made some very good trades.
I mean, when you have Terry McLaurin as your wide receiver 3, your team's pretty solid. I mean, Sam Laporta has emerged as top tight end talent in the league. I don't really like Kenny Pickett. I'm there with you on that. He's got tiny hands. But like the rest of his team is good. Anthony Richardson, even when he got hurt, still put up almost 18 points for you in fantasy.
In a quarter.
So yeah, I'm definitely going to be leaning Kirill on this. I don't think that Dave has a bad team. I don't think that Dave's necessarily getting lucky, like you said, but I think that like Cousins has been like a huge supporting player for his team, having to basically throw for like 500 yards a game just for them to lose. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily like a sustainable number. Josh Jacobs playing poorly is kind of shocking, but Kyron playing well. That wasn't necessarily a big shock, but I think everybody thought Cam Akers was going to be the dude, and then they shipped him off after Kyron kind of came out and said, "Hey, I can run."
I take back the Dave's team being lucky. The more I look at it, like it's a very good, solid team. He's had some good luck. Kyron Williams, he's had some bad luck.
And Brock Purdy's been a really solid QB2 for him. Absolutely. But, he does have Alexander Madison. I mean, Gerald Everett kind of had the increase last week, but he did lose that fumble. So, I mean, the tight end play is lower there as well. So I think Kirill's just got a really good team. And he could be making a deep run in the playoffs too, as long as his team stays healthy. So I'll give it to Kirill as well.
Brock Purdy's probably my top draft regret that I didn't get. He went for $9. It was $9 or $7. And
that's insane.
And I loved Purdy too. I wrote him to the championship last year, so I knew better, and that was a mistake on my part.
All right, we got one more matchup here for you. Big Catfish, just win, baby. 6-0. Crushed me last week. Just absolutely crushed me. And Don over there at 4-2. The Catfish himself. Is that Eric?
Yeah, that's Eric.
Yeah. Eric, 103.97 to Don, 107.73. So again, we've just got some really tight projections. I feel like every week it's going to be close in the projections. I mean, take that with a grain of salt, whatever you feel about projections. But let's go over Eric's team. Bryce Young, Jerome Ford, Saquon Barkley, Tyreek Hill, Tank Dell, Cortland Sutton, TJ Hawkinson, Damian Pierce, Sam Howell. Over on Don's side, he's got Patrick Mahomes, Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Juwan Johnson, Christian Kirk, and Deshaun Watson. Any takeaways from this one, Mike?
I don't know. Is Barkley going to play this week?
I don't think he's supposed to play. He was limited 2 hours ago, limited in practice.
He's Monday night too.
Yeah.
Scary.
I would not risk it. I would substitute him. Who's he got on the bench?
He has Breda. He's got the cuff.
So he's got the cuff. Yeah. So he's good. So he's hoping that Barkley starts. Game time decision, most likely. I don't expect him to. And I don't necessarily want, if I was him, I wouldn't want to start Breda. But he fell in the end zone. He got 9.3 fantasy points last week. That's not terrible. But
I mean, that's only because he got in the end zone that he had.
Well, I didn't say he looked good. I said 9.3 points is not terrible from a guy that isn't good.
82% snap share, and you have 4 carries.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty brutal. They were in negative game script most of the game, though, weren't they?
Yeah, they got. Well, actually, the game was closer than I was expecting it because I watched that game and I was expecting it to just be bludgeoning. And it was kind of close. I actually did in Sleeper. You can do in-game parlay bets, and I did one of those and I hit it. That was kind of fun. It was in the end of the third quarter too. But yeah, this is tough. Don's team is really interesting because he's got his 2 star QBs, Mahomes and Watson, that they're not the best matchups. The Jets are a good D. Maybe Mahomes I think Mahomes just does whatever he wants. So maybe he just wants to ball out in New York on Sunday night. Watson is that tough Baltimore matchup. Watson's had, last week he looked good, but other weeks he's looked really rough. And then he's got wide receivers, but no running backs. So Lamb against New England. Well, if you think Belichick's going to take out Lamb, I might argue they're going to take out Pollard, but who knows? Amon-Ra, is he full participant, not injured at all?
Yeah, I think he was fine.
Okay, so he could be huge. Deebo could be big, especially if Ayuk is still. Oh, he wasn't at practice today. No Deebo at practice today.
Yeah, that's.
Sound the alarms. Sound the alarms. This isn't good. Look at his depth.
I'll add that to the drops as well.
I'll get a
nuclear alarm noise.
Rico Dowdle, is that who's going to come? Like, he's going to pick somebody up, obviously.
He
But
has to.
and Juwan Johnson hasn't done anything this year.
No.
Kirk, I better hope that Zay misses.
On paper, I'm kind of looking at these two teams. On paper, I think this is a really close matchup. Jerome Ford's kind of proven that he can handle the workload. He's obviously no Nick Chubb, and we all know whoever they got from that was never going to be Nick Chubb, but he's kind of proven that he can at least handle that workload that they expect him to. The Saquon thing, I don't think he plays, but that's good. But again, I think it's going to be really high scoring. So I think in the Buffalo matchup, Tyreek Hill is really going to produce. I kind of like Sutton in this matchup. Chicago is terrible. They're just terrible. They're so bad. They had lawn equipment stolen. $100,000 worth of lawn equipment. That's how bad this team is. They can't even keep their lawn equipment safe.
Good old Chicago.
Oh, man. And TJ Hawkinson's great, too. I don't like the Dameon Pierce matchup personally. And obviously, Sam Howell is in a really tough matchup. If we thought he got sacked a lot last week, wait until he had 9 sacks. Oh, my God.
Did you see this?
That's not good.
Cortland Sutton last week lost 2 fumbles and still finished with 15 fantasy points.
Wow. That's insane. Yeah, 8 for 11, 91 yards, a touchdown, lost the 2 fumbles. Yeah, I don't know about you. I'm gonna lean Eric. Even with the questionable Saquon thing. I think there's some bad matchups on the other side, but Amon-Ra could go off tonight as well. But Juwan hasn't done anything. I'm not really high on Christian Kirk, in my personal opinion. He's done fine, but again, that was week 1. He didn't do fine. That was Zay Jones was involved in the offense. So if Zay Jones kind of comes back and gets a little bit more involved, I could see a dip in Kirk's fantasy like upside. But if not, I think he'll be a fine play. I think we're kind of seeing right where he is. I don't necessarily think it's a floor. I don't think it's a ceiling. So potentially could be good for him because I don't think Zay Jones is playing this week. But I'm just not a Christian Kirk stan in general. And Deshaun Watson, as good as he's been playing, he's got a real tough matchup against Baltimore. So I lean more Eric over Don, mainly because it's there's a lot of bad matchups on Don's side of the field.
I mean, I picked against Eric last week when he played you, and I was wrong. He whooped me pretty bad. He's got interesting players. I don't think Saquon's going to be back this week, and that puts him in a tough shot with Breda. Ford's got a tough matchup against Baltimore. Tyreek could win the week by himself. Tank Dell looks great. Hawkinson, like his quarterbacks, I guess the Bryce Young matchup is good against Minnesota. The Sam Howell one is not. It brings, I think we're in a very competitive league. Hence the reason why we're making an hour and a half long podcast right now about this one. Either team could win. I don't ever enjoy picking Donnelly to win at anything. But I'm going to choose Donnelly, and I will not be surprised at all when I'm wrong. And Eric listened to the podcast last week. So, hey, if you're listening at the 1 hour and 20-some minute mark, kudos to you.
So we'll make sure to get those markers in there this week and kind of moving forward so that people can just go ahead and pick out their matchup, and that way you're not subject to listen to us talk for an hour and a half to hear your matchup.
Yeah.
All right, that kind of does it for the show. That was great. I think we had some pretty valuable insights, I think, overall and everything. Anything to add before we head out of here?
No, once you get this far into a podcast, actually, yes, I do have something to add. I do think it'd be fun if we could get another person to hop on in a week. So that is something. It's really easy to do. All you need is just a computer with a webcam, laptop will do. I don't think you can use Streamlabs from a mobile device, right? I feel like when I got the invite, it said that you needed to have a computer or something.
You should be able to do it. This is just a web-based thing, but
it says you'll need the following: a laptop or desktop, recent version of Chrome or Firefox, mic and webcam, good internet connection. So who knows? But super easy. Be fun to have somebody, jump on. I talked to Vice a little bit. He didn't want to, overstep, but because he's not in the league this year technically, even though he's making crucial waiver moves that are like crushing my team.
That's why I got him on this team.
His presence is felt.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's a blast. Glad to do it. And a lot of fun to talk about fantasy.
Yeah. Well, once again, thank you to everyone. Hopefully you listen to the whole thing. It means a lot to us. Obviously, we enjoy making the podcast, and everybody is more than welcome to come on the show. Open invite to anybody. Just reach out to me or the commish, Mike, and we'll get you worked in. We got some fun segments kind of coming up here. I'm pretty excited, but, good luck this week, everybody out there that listened, and, best wishes. So you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.
Good luck, everybody.